Hello and welcome to Business Points on Global Television. We're live in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Queen Agaba. Today on Business Points, we will be continuing with economic hardship and agriculture. But before then, I have my guest, who is a farmer and an analyst, Ndika Wonder, come talk to us on the prevailing challenges faced by Nigerians, especially in the agricultural sector. Let's take a look at what's happening in the business world, in the desk, on the business desk. Now, the Academic Staff Union of Universities has said the federal government is still using the integrated personnel payroll information system to pay lecturers' salaries. National President ASU, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, complained that the federal government had yet to implement its promise to remove tertiary institutions from the integrated payroll and personnel information system platform, adding that the February salary was paid through IPPIS. In December 2023, the federal government announced that the tertiary institutions, including universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, had been exempted from the platform. Maritime workers have warned of a potential nationwide strike if the federal government continues with the proposed 50% automatic deduction from revenue accord to the Nigerian Ports Authority (NPA). They made the threat in a statement. In a statement jointly issued by the Senior Staff Association of Statutory Corporations and Government-Owned Companies and the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria in Lagos State. In the statement signed by the two unions, President of the Senior Staff Association of Statutory Corporations and Government-Owned Companies, Kinola Bodunde, I beg your pardon, President General of the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria, Adewale Adeyanju, stated that they had written a letter to the president regarding the development. The unions warned that failure to rescind the decision would lead to workers' withdrawal and a total shutdown of ports nationwide. Both unions insisted on a 30% deduction from MPA's revenue instead of 50%. Many thanks for joining us. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll look at our big story. Please stay with us. Zulayat. Many thanks for joining us. This is Business Points. Now, Nigeria's economic reality is characterized by a combination of strengths and challenges. On one hand, Nigeria is blessed with abundant natural resources, as we know, particularly oil, which has historically been the main driver of our economy. And as a result, Nigeria is considered one of Africa's largest economies and has the potential for substantial economic growth. However, Nigeria also faces several economic challenges. Additionally, Nigerian citizens face high levels of unemployment and underemployment despite its population being a source of potential labor and economic productivity, job creation has not kept pace with the growing workforce. Income inequality is prevalent in Nigeria, with a significant portion of the population living below poverty line. This disparity in wealth distribution exacerbates social and economic challenges, limiting access to education, healthcare, and other essential services for many Nigerians. Now, let's even talk about inflation. Inflation remains a persistent concern, with the cost of goods and services increasing at a relatively high rate. This has eroded the purchasing power and makes it more difficult for people to afford basic necessities. I am joined by my guest, Mr. Wanda Unika, who is a farmer and an analyst, I beg your pardon. He will be joining me to discuss Nigeria's current and prevailing economic challenges. Many thanks for joining me on the program, Mr. Wanda.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Thank you. I'm very sure that you also experience, because this difficulty cuts across virtually everybody in Nigeria. Let's not even talk about insecurity, food crisis, inflation, and all that. What is your take as regards all that is happening? What are the factors contributing to economic hardship presently?
Well, I'm on TV, and of course, we have to be careful on how we speak. But unfortunately, I thought it would have been better to say it. Sometimes it almost feels like we don't have a government. I don't know, but it's unfortunate. The insecurity, the purchasing power, even selling power is dying. Nothing is working for Nigerians. I don't know. Sometimes it almost feels like we're in a helpless situation now. I don't know what to, my take is just that we just hope our government will sit up to the responsibilities that face us. I believe as Nigeria, I believe as Nigerians, it is very imperative. That it is very imperative for us to understand that we have every resource to beat this challenge. But I wouldn't understand why nothing is done about it. I wouldn't understand why. It is very sad, both on the farm, both workers, both the insecurity. You cannot work. You cannot work. And now there are also policies that are going on now by state governments and local governments not allowing farmers sell their goods. It is sad. We don't know. We don't know where this is taking us to. When you ask a farmer not to take his crop out of the city and only sell within the city, and then your crop might not be the one that is consumed in the city. Is the city enough? The city's purchasing power, is it enough to consume your products? We have not built enough storage places for these crops. And so what happens? We are going to have a lot of rotten products in the farms and all that. It's so sad. It's so sad. No one is really trying to take any responsibility for this. No one is trying to shield our food security. No one is trying to help any situation. It's so sad. I don't know why. I don't even know where to start from, honestly. But everything is really it seems to be falling apart. Everything seems to be falling apart.
Now, I know
So,
that, yes. So, obviously, we've been attending summits where we meet with farmers, meet with grassroots farmers, and most challenges has to be with the key challenges has to be with insecurity and then financing for farmers. Most farmers cannot even go to their farm, to their fields, because of fear of
yeah,
and kidnappers and all of that. And then another major factor that challenges farmers has to do with financing these farmers, because just so that they can embrace mechanized farming. How do you think that lack of finance and then insecurity has affected you as a farmer and other farmers? And then how do you think the government can come in? And now we hear also that there are lots of intervention programs to help farmers and agricultural development. And one of the challenges as well is that these interventions don't get to grassroots farmers, don't get to
Yes,
grassroots
yes.
farmers. Okay, so we just hear the only farmers that it gets to are those that are in the books. Maybe they're not practical, they just know the language of agriculture and all that, but they're not in the farm with those who are in the farm that faces these challenges of lack of fertilizers, farm implement tools, as well as security. How has it affected agricultural output, and in what ways can the government come in, to enable that there's an ease in farming?
Now, I would like to talk about, let me start from where you started first, from the insecurity issues and on the part of insecurity. Before, it was the only concern was majorly getting people to the farm to farm to get workers, I mean laborers to the farm to try to farm the crops and all that, tilling and maintenance and all that. That was a problem. Now another problem. Then came another problem where after farming you have these men get into your goods with their cows and all that and mess up the crop. And now the latest one that is happening now is that the food crops, when you're transporting them to the places where you intend to retail them, because the truth is that we have to find a way to retail our goods in a way, maybe through a middleman or something. And when we're transporting them now, we're now facing cases whereby they are being impounded. We are being facing cases whereby they are even being kidnapped, the food crops. So, and nothing is being done about that. Now, coming to the summit and the intervention programs that you were talking about, it is sad to say.
We can hear you. Can you go on? Okay, we
Know
think.
how.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear
Hello,
you.
can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So it is sad to say that in these intervention programs, we've had to attend a lot of summits and a lot of trade fairs where we try to display the new systems and all that. A lot of these things are coming up, but at the end of the day, nothing happens. Nothing happens for us. We don't see the end to these programs. We had a lot of some we even had to go to as far as Kefi. Some we even had to go as far as Nasarawa State, that's Lafia. Some we had to go to Kaduna for this summit. And the truth is that we hear a lot of promises, we hear a lot of big men, okay, these are taken into group, they form some acronyms for names and all that that is going to be imbibed and there's going to be a portfolio raised. At the end of the day, we do not hear nothing. So the truth is that these matters should not be politicized. These matters are it's necessary for these things to come from the farmers union, but that's not the way it is coming from. What happens is that some people who have some connection from one place to the other come here, form something, they create a portfolio for themselves, and they start running with it. And in the end of the day, we do not see any kickback to the system. So when we're talking about the intervention programs and all that comes to us, I'm sorry, I've always heard about it, but I've never seen anything. And I've been in this thing for quite some years now. I've not seen anything happen. So I think they should change their model and try to reach out to us and know how these things work, so we can tell them that is if they really want to see the effects in our system and in the agricultural system.
Many thanks. So now let's look at, we see that the government should reach out to you directly, farmers, grassroots farmers directly, through one of the ways you suggested is through farming. I want to know how active this union, now that you have a union. this union, this farmers
Okay.
union, been involved in over time as regards the welfare of farmers and agriculture in general?
The farmers union is very effective. It could be very effective. It is first of all, we have to understand that this should not be politicized. We're talking about feeding the nation, so it's not a matter to be politicized. Um, I've heard a lot of people say, "You are farmers, you make your profit, so you should find a way to um, go about this thing." But the truth is that the government can never stop intervening or subsidizing certain things. If the government does intervene um, in the renting of machines or getting of farming tools and then fertilizers, the truth is that crop produce we go will skyrocket because you have to get them at any you have to sell as you get. And now, so talking about the intervention programs and all that, I'm of the opinion that okay, you're talking about how do they get to us. Of course, there are so many unions. I think the best way is to open up forums where these people are captured. We capture there are those from the grassroots, there are those from the local government areas, and there are so many systems from where you get them through. So I thought the best way was um, we could have independent independent bodies supervise these things. Maybe we could have an independent body which partners with the Ministry of Agriculture to get to the grassroots farmers. Now, what happens when these independent bodies, the most probably private bodies, are employed? They will be compelled to make sure that they do exactly what they are paid for or what they are employed for. And then you have somebody that you can hold to ransom, you can hold responsible. But the unions cannot fight government. There is no way you can fight government. Because when you're fighting government, you're fighting a faceless person, you fight an endless battle. So I really think they should devise means. We've suggested so many means and all that. They should devise means, gather this union together, get us sitting together, and somehow they will find a way to these intervention programs. The intervention program is not even as important as the insecurity that is ravaging the system. The insecurity and the and all that. So if they can take care of insecurity, I think our problem would have been 75% solved. Yes, that's what I think. But now to get subsidy to food and the food and crop produce, maybe that's where the intervention program comes in, and maybe it's going to help. So that's my take.
Beautiful. Now we see that today makes it the seventh day since the High Court, a suit was filed, through the High Court, suit by senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, who's a human rights activist, that the federal government should fix the prices of food items and petroleum products. How far has this come? You obviously are a farmer and you also go out daily. Has there been a change in the prices of goods and services, especially petroleum products and food items? Okay, I think we lost him due to poor network connection. But while we wait for him to reconnect, we'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. So while we're still waiting to connect with Wanda Undercar, let's still look at the business desk. The Naira fell to a new all-time low of 1,534 Naira per dollar on the official Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market. This indicates a loss of 3.93% fall, or 58 Naira from the 1,476.13 Naira per dollar the national currency closed last week, Friday. According to FMDQ Exchange, a platform that publishes official foreign exchange trading in the country, Monday's official rate became the worst official exchange rate since the Central Bank of Nigeria floated the national currency in June 2023. The United Kingdom and Nigeria have signed a partnership agreement to promote trade and investment and open new prospects for both countries. The United Kingdom Minister for Business and Trade, Kemi Badenoch, signed the Enhanced Trade and Investment Partnership Agreement alongside her Nigerian counterpart, Nigerian Trade Minister Doris Uzoka Nite, on Tuesday in Abuja. This was contained in a statement made available by the senior press and public affairs officer and communications lead, prosperity and economic development, British High Commission in Lagos, Ndidi Amaka Eze, on Tuesday. The ETIP is the first the UK has signed with an African country and is designed to grow the UK and Nigeria's already thriving trading relationship, which totaled €7 billion in the year to September 2023, according to the statement. Now, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission on Tuesday said plans are on the way to end gas flaring in 2030. The NUPRC Chief Executive Officer Gbenga Komolafe disclosed this while delivering his speech at the 8th Sub-Saharan Africa International Petroleum Exhibition and Conference holding in Lagos. According to Komolafe, the NUPRC is effectively spearheading the national drive to achieve the zero flare target by 2030 and net zero carbon emissions by 2060. This, he said, will be achieved through several initiatives, including the Nigerian gas flare commercialization program. And power distribution companies that are performing below stipulated standards in the Nigerian electricity supply industry are going to lose 50% of their operating expenditures, the federal government have declared. It made the declaration through the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission at the first NESI stakeholders meeting of 2024 in Lagos, stressing that the individual performances of the DISCOs shall be examined on a case-by-case basis going forward. Officially, Nigeria has 11 power distribution companies that supply electricity to over 12 million registered power users across the country. And the Academic Staff Union of Universities has said the federal government is still using the Integrated Personnel Payroll Information System to pay lecturers' salaries. National President ASU, Professor Emmanuel Osedeke, complained that the FG had yet to implement its promise to remove tertiary institutions from the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System platform, adding that the February salary was paid through IPPIS in December 2023. The FG announced that tertiary institutions, including universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, had been exempted from the platform. And lastly, maritime workers have warned of a potential nationwide strike if the federal government continues with the proposed 50% automatic deduction from revenue accrued to the Nigerian Port Authority, NPA. They made the threat in a statement jointly issued by the Senior Staff Association of Statutory Corporations and Government-Owned Companies and the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria in Lagos. In the statement signed by the two unions, President of the Senior Staff Association of Statutory Corporations and Government-Owned Companies, Akinola Bodunde, and President General of the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria, Adewale Adeyanju, stated that they had written a letter to the president regarding the development. The unions warned that failure to rescind the decision would lead to workers' withdrawal and a total shutdown of ports nationwide. Both unions insisted on a 30% deduction from MPA's revenue instead of 50%. Now that's all we have for you on the business desk. There's more to come on our midday news. Keep it locked with us here on Global Television. Remember, we're on Star Times channel 276. We'll take a quick break and we'll reconnect with our guest, Wanda Unduka, who will be speaking on the prevailing challenges of agriculture, farmers, and Nigerians as a whole. Please stay with us. Many thanks for joining us on the program. We had a hard time connecting with our guest, Wanda Unduka, who is a farmer and an analyst. I believe we have Wanda Unduka with us now.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. I'm so sorry about the network. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's understandable. Thank you. Now, before the glitch, we had the glitch. We've been speaking about, sustainable farming, sustainable agriculture in Nigeria. Now, you're pretty young. I see that you're young, but in this part of um, the world, we don't see many young farmers. What do you think we can do to integrate the youth to embrace agriculture and entrepreneurship, especially with the stereotype as regards farming? Most people believe that agriculture, farmers are not, agriculture in general is not lucrative, and farmers are perceived to be poor in that sense. Can you tell us about agriculture? Because on the contrary, I hear that agriculture is really very lucrative, and we see how we call for interventions. If only there would be interventions for people who are entrepreneurs and farmers to help them practice sustainable agriculture in Nigeria. Can you tell us how youth can be incorporated into embracing agriculture and entrepreneurship in Nigeria?
Now, the biggest issue with getting into entrepreneurship in Nigeria is basically finances and then sustainability. Now, because agriculture has not been attractive to people because most of the time people who actually get into agriculture are people who really have.
Huh?
Can you hear me, please? Please,
Yes,
can
I
you hear
can.
me?
Please go on.
Okay. So, like I was saying, um, the reason why agriculture is not so sustainable in Nigeria is basically because because why youth are not in agriculture. I mean, is because agriculture in Nigeria is not very sustainable. Now, why do I say not so sustainable? For youth, young people like me, a lot of people do not have land. And then when we're talking about land, how these lands are being allocated to farmers is also a problem. A lot of people want to get into farm, but now I'm from the southern part of Nigeria, but I grew up in the north. And so I do not belong to these communities where they could easily go to their Miangwa or the chief, and the chief will allocate a land to me. So definitely I have to rent a land. I have to rent a land space for the agriculture. Now these are some problems that people like me face. And I want to talk about the sustainability of these things. We're talking about um, fertilizer, getting fertilizer. You cannot go to the farm to buy fertilizer to do your crops, to enhance your crop. If you dare, you will not make no profit. You really need fertilizer, the ones that come from the ones that have been subsidized by the government. And these things are not they are not obtainable. They are not obtainable just because you're a farmer. You really, really, really need to know who knows who to be able to get these things. So you know that the youth of our land, the youth of our time are all they are just about being entrepreneur. People do not want to base into some kind of funny politics and some kind of panky panky games. All we just want to do is get into the market, do what we need to do, and get our profits. So I'm sustainable of it so that next year I farm this year, I make my profit. I'm able to go to the farm next year and make my profits without having new problems and all that. So I really, really think that a lot of these should be captured and listened to. Listen to. That's what I say. That's the reason why the youth of our time are really the system it was not created to work for us. They should need it, they need to make a lot of things work for us. A lot of things need to work for us. Now I got into farming because I have a superior who is in farming. And it's not because I had all the items and I had all the products. But really, If I was not involved with my superior, his farm produce or his farm would have not survived. It needs the farming system needs youthfulness. It needs it needs strength. It needs new ideas. And these are the things that we bring to or bring on board. So they should look for a way. I think our system, the system of Nigeria, should look for a way where youth can be captured in. It's not only farm produce. We're also talking about livestock. We're also talking about livestock. We're talking about fishery. It's a very very wide range. And the truth is that when you come to the farm, the people doing the job are youthful, but the people who owns these farms ain't youthful. And so sustainability is not there. One thing happens, and then these people are nowhere to be found. You should see a very, very prosperous farm closed down. So I think a lot could be done for usefulness to be captured.
Now, many thanks. Just lastly, we understand that for anything you venture into, you need adequate training and preparation. For example, we hear of courses for entrepreneurs, people who want to venture into businesses and who want to venture into specialized courses. We hear of trainings. Most times these trainings are given on scholarships for people to benefit. In terms of, we know that the government have a role to play as regards providing resources, financing, and elevation for agricultural value chain. Now, how can individuals, this is to individuals now, how can we elevate the challenges that we face in agriculture? How do we even thrive regardless of the prevailing challenges that we face? Do you advocate, this should be a double barrel question now, do you advocate for training so that people can know training as regards agriculture? Do we have plans like an agricultural school, a school where people learn about agriculture and the possible ways, the best ways possible they can, be specialized in one of the value chains, whether it's livestock rearing or whether it's crop production and all that? What can be done to, better
I really want to start by saying the government she must take the lead line here because the government make the policies. The government should must take the lead line because whatsoever is done by a private, whether private partnership, a private firm, or a corporate firm to help in this matter, if government do not take the lead role, first of all, the government make the policies that either severe or enhance the system. So the government must be they must be stakeholders in this thing to know how it works. You can't be on the fence and make policies on how these things work or do not work. The government has to be hands on it. Of course, private partnership, corporate bodies can come into these things, but if the government doesn't take the lead role, in the end of the day, we do not have any sustainable policy. Policies are made and policies are marked every time by new government and new people who come into power. So what I think the government should take the lead role and make these things be workable for the people and to the people. So that when these policies come on board, whoever is coming in, corporate bodies, private partnership or whatever, to enhance agriculture are working in line with what the government has tested and it's working. So there are trainings that go on both in private, corporate and all that, but I really feel these trainings are not good enough. Sustainability, how do you get finances to invest? How do you come into it? It's very important too. So I think but the trainings are not adequate. It's not even attractive enough. It's not attractive enough. Most of the time, people who think they are self-sufficient don't want to come into farming because the nitty-gritties with it. So I really think it should be attractive enough for anybody to want to come into these things and invest.
Many thanks, Mr. Wonder. Thank you for speaking extensively on agriculture in Nigeria. We do hope to have you some other time, and we pray and hope that it will be glitch-free and network-free. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. We've been speaking with Wanda Unduka, who is a farmer and an analyst. This is where we draw the curtains on Business Point. Many thanks for joining us. Don't forget, we're on Star Times, channel 276. And kindly follow us on all social media platforms using @Global TV NG. Thank you for watching. See you again.